Hey everybody, Scott Detweiler here, back with the Capture One live stream. Today we're going to make it a little bit different though. Instead of me retouching a picture, we're going to talk a little bit about what Capture One has coming up in some of the new features. Now this morning, in whatever time zone they're in, they had we have a bunch of stuff that they tell us we can't talk about, right? And then a lot of things that beta testers get to play with and so on. But this is one of those things that they announced to us and told us that we could tell everybody as of about 9 a.m. I think it's their time. And that is two new features coming to Capture One soonish, and they're in development. And the first one would be HDR merging. So we're going to talk about a couple of these things today, and then we're going to talk about one that's actually in beta right now that you could try out. At least I believe everyone can try it out. But the first one here is HDR merging. So the HDR thing, which is one of the items that everyone's been clamoring about for a really long time, looks like it will be coming to the product sooner rather than later. Now, they haven't really given a release date on that at all, but it looks like probably December would be the best guess that I have heard. But obviously, those are subject to change depending on what's going on. Hey, Tormund, welcome to the stream. So yeah, if you are a member of the channel, by the way, you can always chat in the live stream here. I appreciate your support for everything. So anyway, so the HDR merging, not a lot of details coming out from it, but two parts to HDR, obviously the merging and then the panorama stitching. So the ability for you to take images in a panorama and then pull them together so you can get your really nice wide distributions of shots. If you're a person who does a lot of Brenzinger types of things, that'd be image stacking, where you take like a 200mm lens, but you'd focus in on just your subject, but then shoot the surrounding area. So you end up with something that looks like a 35mm, but is actually a 200mm. So you get some really nice depth of field compression, perspective compression, and so on. So kind of a neat thing. If you're big into HDR, the panorama stitching, I think, is another one of those things that goes hand in hand. I personally don't shoot any HDR, but I do some Brenzinger type of focus stacking. So panorama stitching will be pretty cool. So again, not a lot of details on what there's involved with these things, but we do know now that they are in development, actively in development, and we should see them later this year if all goes well. Okay, so let's talk about real world stuff that's going on today. And so the one thing that I want to talk about that's kind of on everyone's, I'm going to say everyone's list right now, is the export dialog has been given a huge change. So before, we used to have our export gear here and our batch gear here. Those are now missing. So a lot of people, like myself, have actually rolled back my production because I can't not have those. So I wanted to talk a bit about that today. And I know a lot of people are freaking out about it, and I think they've heard us. So they're going to come back and I think take another look at this because a lot of people have been using this product for decades. Remember, it's older than Lightroom, so it's been around a lot longer because the Phase 1 camera, and Phase 1 is the people that came up with this, this was their original way for you to handle the very large files that came out of that back when, Nikon and Sony are still producing, 14 or 12 megabit pictures. Anyway, so the two things I have issues with here are the fact that we can't add additional panels. So if you're a follower of this channel, you know that I use the metadata panel to double check that this model is, or a client will be receiving the correct image, and this automatically puts it into her Dropbox. So I have a very hands-off way of handling a lot of people's images that go automatically into my Synology or into my Dropbox, and I cannot do any of that right now in this dialog. So what I have to do is I have to go back and forth between this and then my original one, which I guess I'm going to have to start using this panel now to go and find all that stuff that's on here. So I have to kind of fiddle around, which is driving me nuts. So hopefully they're going to fix that. So that's one of the major pains that I feel right now. But one of the other new features they've rolled out, and unfortunately it's also not something I can add to this screen, which is where I think it should live, is the ability to do an export to this thing called Capture One Live Beta. So what this is basically the ability to share the output of a specific folder. So say we the selects folder, for example, and then we can share that with a client. Now, I don't do this. I have an in-person sales product. I use nview.com, which I really love. I'm a very big fan of it. And that helped me get my studio sales up probably about 300 or 400%. It was really big because it's web-based and allows me to kind of share the images I want to share. The problem I have with this, although I do see where they're going with it, is that I don't have any control over the client's ability to look at the images as I want them to look at them. The nice thing about EnView is that I control when they turn the page to look at the next image. We can discuss them, which ones are going to put in the albums, which we're going to put on the walls, that kind of thing. Cannot do any of that with this. You're basically giving them a link. It's live for 24 hours, and they can do anything they want to do with it. Now, the big fear I have is, what do they just want to save the images? You know, because why not? Apparently, it's supposed to respect whatever the last process recipe that has been selected, which of course isn't really very obvious from this interface. But again, this is still a beta, so hopefully they're hearing some of that feedback. So let's check it out. I'm going to start sharing this here, and it's going to take a second. It's going to give me a link, and then I'm going to go and find a, let's do a new tab here. And I'm going to throw this in here so you guys can see it. There we go. 2 seconds here. So this is the screen that has given me. So right now I can go through and you can see it's still populating these as we're going. So it is exporting them. And it is actually exporting them because my signature is on here. But you see it's very tiny. So it is indeed respecting the process recipe, but it is not respecting the scale or placement of the watermark. So a client can go through and then star rate these, and that star rating will be translated directly back into the select folder. So I kind of see what they're doing here and where that could be handy. But I think there's a lot, especially from those of us who are professional photographers who do this for a living, this gets part of the problem solved. But I can see those who are somewhat hobbyists and maybe just want to show pictures of somebody and say, hey, what are your star ratings? What are your colors on these things? I think this is a pretty nice offering. But one of those I think that has a lot going on with it. So if there's feedback that you have for this product, this is a really good time for you to try it. If you sign up for it, which you can do on the Capture One website, you can sign up for the beta, and then you can give them feedback as to what you think this tool should do or not do. Now, I kind of like the fact that these are live for only 24 hours. So it's like something is stopping there, or an error. But I like the fact that these are living for only 24 hours. And that's nice because then we have a ability to give it to a client, have them quickly move on something, because there's nothing worse than waiting months or weeks for a client to make a decision on what you want. And I have a lot of clients in that situation where I'm waiting for them. I still have seniors, high school seniors from last year that still have not made their final selections, which is a real little, troubling. But as much as you jump on them to do it, they just don't do it. But hopefully that will help. But again, this is something I see where they're going with it. It's a nice service, something I personally might use a bit, but again, not for in-person sales. For in-person sales, they use a completely different product, and I'm happy to answer questions about that in the comments below. But right now, I'm just kind of dealing with the fact that I like some of these new features, but I've got feedback, of course, because I'm not a silent one. So I've always got something to say for it, because I do use the product. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, sorry about that. My phone is going off like mad here. I think a lot of people are looking forward to this, but if you have interest in this and you have feedback, go ahead and sign up for it. You can add this to your latest version by going to Add Tool and then do Add Capture One Live Beta, and then give them some feedback. I think, again, it's a nice idea. I'm still stuck on the fact that keywording is terrible. And as much as I think they're trying to attract Lightroom users over to Capture One, basic functionality like being able to keyword, use synonyms, and restrict certain keywords from exporting is mandatory, and they aren't doing any of that right now. And I think that they need to fix some of that basic digital asset management type of thing before they're going to get buy-in from a lot of us that maybe are professionals but use Lightroom and want to come over to this. Obviously, there's so much at Capture One that's much better than Lightroom, but if that basic functionality is missing, then there's not really much you can do if you depend on that for your livelihood. So anyway, I just wanted to make a quick thing today, and will they charge extra for that service when it's out of beta? We really don't know. We haven't been given any information. I assume so. I can't imagine that if they've got 1 million users using Capture One, that they would be able to survive having 1 million users all uploading galleries every 24 hours. So Rodney says he left some feedback for the Capture One Live, talking between images and rating. Yeah, there's some things in there that I would really like to see fixed. The one that's driving me nuts right now is this export dialog. I mean, I like it and I get it, but I need the ability to look at the metadata over here. Plus, I don't know it's just a thing for me, but it seems like the people who make Capture One love clicking the mouse. Like, I go into my recipes, well, I can't get to my recipes now, but if I was in my recipes here, I have to clear all these client ones every time. So I have to click 7 times, then go up to Photoshop 8 times, 9 times, and then click process. So in a given day, I can click maybe 400 or 500 times, where any other application, including some that have horrible user interfaces, like let's use Adobe Substance Painter, which is a horrible interface, I can alt click on this checkbox and it will uncheck everything. Not to mention I have to scroll to the bottom of the list every time to make sure all the checkboxes are cleared. So there's some usability I think they need to focus on that's not hard. I mean, I used to be a software developer. That is not a very difficult thing for a UI. And the ability to restrict a keyword from exporting is actually already in the product. It's in the database anyway. So they just simply have to finish that. I'm happy to see the HDR stitching. I'm happy to see the panorama, or I say the HDR. I'm happy to see the panoramic stitching. And I think the idea of the live here is interesting. But I'm still a stickler on the fact I need keywording be fixed, and I really need LUTs to be in here, because I have clients that request LUTs, corporate standard LUTs be used, and I have to take the image back into Lightroom and then use a LUT on it, which is dumb. So, so there we go. Sorry. Yeah, sometimes it's a bit nuts with the text in there. Sorry about that, Keith. You'd like to see Capture One expand the size of the catalogs beyond 25,000. I have catalogs that have well over 25,000 images in them. They're a little slow. I'm not going to say that it's a speed demon. It's faster than Lightroom is. My thing is that I'm very much a fan of sessions. I think Capture One's catalog idea is there, but I think its implementation is a little tenuous. The ability to, for example, move things around in Lightroom makes its catalog a little more easy to manage, where Capture One, if you're using an in-catalog image, you do not have any ability to manipulate that where it is located in your hard drive and how it's managed. So some of those things would drive me a little bit nuts. I'm going to be actually doing a whole catalog video here pretty soon, talking about how to kind of wrangle that around. I think that a lot of people use it when they come from Lightroom and think, wow, it's a catalog. I like catalogs in Lightroom. That's what they use. Then I'm going to need a catalog in Capture One. And I think that's completely the opposite. There's a couple of situations where I think a catalog is useful. And I'm going to say it mostly boils down to, do you shoot the same thing all the time, but in different locations? So example would be someone who shoots birds or flowers, for example, or wildlife. If you are a wildlife photographer and you use keywording, of course, which you probably don't use this product for it, then you care more about what is the animal you shot. Was it a bear? Was it a certain kind of bear? Was it a certain kind of bird? Was it a certain kind of, was it a snake or butterfly or whatever it is you're shooting? But you don't really care where you shot it or the date you shot it on. Or maybe you do, but you'd have keywords to say Alaska, brown bear, grizzly bear, on a lake, on a mountain, wherever. That would be a great use of a catalog, because then you could go in and say, just show me all the grizzly bears I've shot, regardless of when or where they were shot. That is a great use of a catalog. But if you're a wedding photographer, if you're a person who shoots headshots for businesses, if you're shooting high school seniors, if you're shooting a boudoir, you're shooting any of those kinds of things, it's organized really by client. So I can look in here and say, I need to see a Renee's boudoir session because Renee's buying pictures. And then I can jump out of that session and say, okay, I need to go to this wedding, and I shot this wedding on this day and I need to work with their pictures. But to have all of your wedding pictures or all your boudoir pictures in one giant catalog, I don't think is very handy. It's like you're not going to search and say, give me all of my boudoir pictures, because why would you ever do that? And I don't know that that would be worth having a catalog, because remember that at a certain point, you're going to hit the edge where the catalog is useful. You're going to have, 200, 300,000 images in there, and it's going to be slow, and you're going to suffer and say, well, I'm just going to do is make a new catalog every year. That'll solve my problem. Well, but that's just the exact same issue. Now you've just got to say, well, which year did I shoot that in? And I have to go look. And it's much easier to use the session. Plus, here's the thing that I think solves the problem if you're trying to make the logical leap, is when you export a JPEG from your product, say in here, and I export a JPEG from here, and it's going to use the keywords that are attached to this. Let's say I have boudoir, I have sherry, I have that it's studio or whatever I want to do, keyword wise. Those are all attached to the JPEG. So if I go to my JPEG master file and I can go inside of Windows Explorer and I can type in tag : boudoir, and it will show me all of those pictures that are boudoir related. They're the finished JPEGs I've already exported from Capture One. So I think a lot of people think when I'm searching for an image, I have to search inside of Capture One. But in reality, you're probably looking for something you've already retouched and you've already exported. And if you use keywords, then you can find it just by using the Windows Explorer or the Mac Finder, both of which are keyword sensitive. So I think that there's a lot of interesting things going on here. But again, I'm a big proponent of we need some of the basics to be fixed, specifically those two things. And I see now that they have the totals of the folders now in catalogs anyway, so you can see the total count now that's in there. That was recently updated as of this last update. So this is Capture One 14.3.1.14. So this is not the one I'm using for production, by the way. I have rolled back the other one. This one, because of these changes to the export folder or the export dialog, have destroyed my workflow. I have to back up a bit. Now, again, I've given a lot of feedback, as have others, and I know that they're paying attention, and they've actually sent messages out saying that they understand they've made some issues there. And I think that we should see a happy medium between them trying to, in a way, dumb the interface down a bit to make it more approachable for those that find the product to be a bit GUI heavy, because it is. I mean, there's a lot of buttons going on here. But that I think that they're forgetting the fact that they are the professional photographer's bread and butter, and that's why we leave Lightroom. Is at some point, I call Capture One Lightroom for grown-ups. In a lot of ways, it is. It does things a lot better, but it's those couple of things that are stopping it from being everything I want it to be. Tormon says that he used sessions and catalogs in Photo Mechanic, or with Photo Mechanic. Yeah, Photo Mechanic. There's another one called Photo Supreme that I had used for a while, a couple of years ago, and I actually might look them up again. They have a very powerful keywording system, and it really kind of fills the gap. But I feel kind of silly that I have to go back into Lightroom to keyword my images properly because this product is so weak in that restriction. So you can see here kind of how these look. All these things that I have to have that I don't ever want to. I don't want to see all these like USA. I don't want to see that in everyone. I just want to see the end result. So there's a lot of things that are driving me nuts like that. But anyway, so kind of a quick talk today about the release of this information. So the fact that the panoramic stitching and the HDR are coming up, meaning they're working on them, and hopefully we should see a few more things between now and then, especially if you're into it. I'm a beta tester for the product, so as they start to get some stuff done for beta, although I can't talk about that stuff directly, we can certainly talk around it a bit and give some information that is not under embargo. So I will attempt to do that, as I always do, without breaking the rules, because I enjoy using the product before everybody else does. But some things just kind of surprise us from time to time, and this is one of those. Like, we had no idea this was coming, as well as the live functionality. That was a new thing that just kind of jumped out at us, and none of us really expected to see. But there's a few use cases there that I don't think they explored, that I think they've been given quite a bit of feedback on now. We'll see what the next iteration is. I'm excited to see where they go with it, but I personally won't be using it. I'm going to use NView product. By the way, if you don't know what NView is, I'll just throw that up on the screen real fast here. I'm a huge fan of this product. So it's just n-vu.com. And it's in-person sales, but it's a web-based in-person sales. So you can control, you get to see what the client is going to see, even though they're not next to you. And they can upload pictures of the living room, for example, so you can try different placements of sizes of art on the walls and cell groupings and all that stuff. So this is what I did during COVID to continue the business. And it's actually something that I used but way before COVID. I've been using for a couple of years. And this has been my bread and butter for making sure that I can make sales in the studio. And I have people, even if they come in the studio for in-person sales, we still use this product, even though it's web-based, right in front of them, because it makes life a lot easier on me. So yes, I'm a huge fan of H&H. So this H&H actually owns NView. So H&H Photolab is who I use to print all of my stuff, my metals and everything else along that lines. So this is a no-brainer for me. I'm a huge fan of this product and H&H. to begin with. And they didn't sponsor this or anything. It's just, I really love the product and I love the company. So anyway, gang, I'm going to let you guys go. That was it. I do have a couple of other things I want to do on the channel this week that I'm going to get done. If you are a member of the channel, by the way, there's a new texture. And then for the patron levels, there's a new texture and a new Capture One style for you to go ahead and download. Those are free of charge. As are all the past ones. So if you are just joining as a member of the channel, you get access to all the past videos I've done that are real time, as well as all the past textures I've released and the styles. So there's quite a few out there now. It's like 17 or 18 different textures, which I normally sell in packs of 5 for $40. So for $5, you have access to all those. Go download them. And then if you're the patron level, then you have access to all the Capture One styles as well. There aren't as many of those. I haven't been doing that for as many months, but I really appreciate you guys helping out. And Tormund, thanks for coming in today. So Tormund is obviously one of my channel sponsors. You can tell by his neat little badge and the green in the chat there. Really appreciate you guys. You are helping me out a bunch. Yeah, I will get another video out. Hey, thanks, Keith, for hanging in as well. But everybody take care, stay safe, and I will catch you all